All right, hey everyone. Thanks for coming in here. It's obviously Friday night. I'm starting this about like 4.5 minutes earlier, something like that. I was ready. You guys were in here already, so I figured might as well start it out. I don't want to waste your guys' time, obviously. So up on the agenda today is Marathon. Marathon's on the agenda today with obviously their production update, and they are getting placed into this S&P small 600, I think it is. We'll take a look at that. Obviously, that's good news for them. Miners did really good today. Bitcoin did really great today as well. We have some good news, obviously. I don't think it's all doom and gloom for Bitcoin. We'll take a look at a couple tweets from a couple people, and we'll call it a day. And then we'll get into the Q&A side of things as well with you guys here. So it should be fun. Friday night. It's going to be more casual. Well, it's always casual with you guys here anyway. So let's get into it here. Obviously, you guys know the drill here. This is not financial advice, for entertainment only as always, right? You guys know the drill here. This is my full disclosures for everything here. If you enjoy this type of content, please hit the like button, subscribe, helps me out tremendously. And let's get into what's going on here with Bitcoin really quick, and we'll get into the other stuff as well. So we're looking at the Bitcoin fees per day right now. It's basically Bitcoin transaction fees on the daily, and they're still relatively down here from where we were, obviously in the peak after the halving event. We're down to 34 BTC per day on average right now. So that's kind of holding steady right now. The only time that's going to really change, I think, is if like the ordinals or the runes start pumping again. I think that's going to happen probably with Bitcoin pumping, in the future, in the next couple of weeks, couple of months. We might see a spike in BTC transaction fees at that point. But right now we're kind of flat as it isn't. It's kind of what we were expecting to go with anyways, really. This was just a huge anomaly here, obviously, with runes that we saw. So we're back to normal, I think, where we were going to be anyways. So this is fine. Looking at the next part here is obviously the total hash rate of Bitcoin. You can see that has been coming down here, as obviously Bitcoin has come down in price a little bit. The hash rate has come down along with it because the profitability just isn't there right now for some of the older miners potentially, especially if they have a higher electrical cost. Right, so it's right now at the hash rate on the 7-day average is at 601 exahash. On the 30-day, it is kind of flat right now. It's kind of bouncing around right around the 624, 625 exahash mark on the 30-day average. I expect this to come down here unless Bitcoin really starts going back up much, much higher, much faster. But we'll see what happens there on that one. And then when we look at the hash rate index here, this is the hash price for Bitcoin. It is coming up a little bit here in the last couple of days. And that's at $48 right now per petahash as it is. And that's mainly due to, I think, Bitcoin price going up in value here in the last 24 hours or so, right? But that's obviously a big impact on the miners, whether they're going to be profitable or not, depending on the machines that they have, the joules per terahash, the electrical cost, all that stuff goes into, obviously, consideration when you're looking at this stuff here. Okay, but Bitcoin itself today had a pretty good day. It was up over 4% today. It closed, let me see here. It was up right around, actually it was even better than that. It was up 6.5% today. It closed at 62,913. The miners, for the most part, didn't do as well as Bitcoin did today. So I'm wondering if they kind of maybe front run a little bit yesterday, right? We saw pretty nice gains from the miners yesterday in some spots. But the miners were today pretty, how can I put this? They were doing great in the morning, right? They were outperforming Bitcoin, but towards the end of the day and then through like the late morning hours into the afternoon, prices started coming back down. I wonder if there was just quite a few profit taking at that point. And we also could probably see some miners here that have ATMs. They're probably pulling the trigger on those ATMs because at that point, if you have a lot of inflows into the stock, that's going to obviously help any selling. So that's kind of what we might be seeing today. On that one, we didn't have any huge gainers today. A lot of the miners were just around 5%, 4%, 3%, 2%, somewhere at 1%. Then we only had two that were really down here. Hive was down 2%. Argo was down 2% as well on the day. Overall, pretty good day here. The good thing is obviously Bitcoin did finish off the day above 61,000, which was obviously our previous support and resistance, right? We were hoping that would go above this. It did. It went above 61,000. It came pretty close to our next resistance here, which is going to be right around, I think, what is that, 63,700 or so. And we came pretty close here on the new day as well, just in the last couple of hours, to getting to that mark as well. So that's kind of our resistance next. If we can get past that, obviously we'll possibly continue going forward. But we'll see. So maybe this bottom that we saw here on Wednesday at, what was the low on that? 56,500. maybe that is the low for this kind of short-term cycle potentially, right? Obviously, Bitcoin, if it goes up, it's going to go up much higher. And at that point, we'll probably do another pullback, 15, 20, 25% potentially. Just kind of reset things again and then drive another another higher new all-time high potentially, okay? But that's it here. So like I said, not everything is doom and gloom here. If we look at some of the tweets that I saw here today, this is from Willie Wool. Bitcoin is at 4.7% world adoption. This is the same as January 1999 for internet adoption. If you were alive back then, at that point, I was, how old was I? I was approximately 1999. Wow, that's going quite a ways back. I was like in my 20s, I think. Yeah, that's basically, I was like 21 at that point. So if you remember that point, we had dial-up, obviously, right? You remember the screeching sound of the modem getting access to the internet. So that's kind of where we are at right now with Bitcoin. And you can see here on this chart, here's the internet adoption, the red line here going parabolic, right? And then here we are with Bitcoin right now. We're at 4.7%. We have a long ways to go before everything is said and done on Bitcoin, and which is fantastic, right? It's obviously a great space to be in right now. Next, here we can see here that just in from Bitcoin Magazine, Jack Dorsey announces his company Block will now be buying Bitcoin every month moving forward, right? Little steps forward with adoption is great to see. Block buying Bitcoin. Eventually, we'll see other companies buying Bitcoin as well, putting it on the balance sheet as well. And it's just one of those things that's going to possibly continue to snowball going forward. So these are all great things going forward for not only us here that are investing in miners, but in Bitcoin in general. Adoption is a big thing for the community in general, okay? Next year, let's get into Marathon here. So Marathon Digital Holdings is to join the S&P Small Cap 600. This is great news for them, obviously, right? This is going to put them on the mark, or at least on the list here. And we saw a pretty good pump here after hours. I think they were up like 6%, 7% up in the after hours, and then kind of came back down here. But you can see here, S&P Small Cap 600 addition added in Marathon Digital Holdings. That's great news for Marathon and Marathon holders as well. So we'll see if we get other companies being added to that as well. But obviously, this is great news for Marathon here. Okay. Next, we're going to look at the Marathon production updates for April of 2024. And that was actually pretty good. There's some good signs here, potentially going forward here. We'll have to see, obviously, on some of the sites that they do have issues at, how those are being remedied. But here's management commentary here. With capacity in Allendale coming back online and improvements made at other sites, we increased our average operational hash rate 15% in April to 21.1 exahash and increased our Bitcoin production 21% to 850 Bitcoin. That's great, right? They're still obviously not at 100%, but they're getting there. They're making the right things going forward, which is good to see. And then here's another comment from Fred Thiel. We continue to expand into the available capacity at our recently acquired sites, including those at Kearney, Garden City during April. We successfully energized approximately 2 exahash worth of miners at various locations, which includes the 9,500 machines we relocated from Allendale to Garden City. So they're doing the right things right there. Where they're having issues, they're moving the miners out and putting them into facilities that are operating, which is good. And then continue on here, while last month's halving event will reduce Bitcoin production for all the miners, we are accelerating our growth plans to mitigate the impact given the amount of capacity we have available following our recent acquisitions and the amount of hash rate we have access to through current machine orders and options. We now believe it is possible for us to double the scale of Marathon's mining operations in 2024 and achieve 50 exahash by the end of the year. Right, that is going to be a great goal if they can get there. Obviously, their track record hasn't been great over the years, so it's one of those things where it's trust and verify. And that's kind of what we're doing here. I'm hopeful that they can do this. Right, this would be great for Marathon shareholders, and everything else, and for the whole space in general. If they can get to 50 exahash, that would be fantastic. But continuing on here with this growth fully funded based on current liquidity, we look forward to improving our position as a leader in converting underutilized energy into economic value. So that's obviously great news here. So like I said, they're one of the biggest miners here. They are the biggest miner here right now. They've had some issues. We've talked about those issues to death already, to death basically. And if they can fix those issues, do the right things going forward, they're doing the right things now by buying infrastructure and all those things, If they can continue to do that, improve on their operations and everything else, they will be great going forward. Okay. Now, here's what we have for the numbers for April. Bitcoin produced is 850. This is part of their self-mining and through the joint ventures, right? So that's kind of that. And you can see here that let me see here. It's obviously down a little bit here from last prior month, 894. And we're seeing that kind of across the board for all the miners here with the halving event obviously happening. Average Bitcoin produced per day, 28.3. So that's good. Their number of blocks, this is for their self-mining. This is through Mara Pool, 129 blocks. And that's kind of what I have calculated for them as well. And we'll take a look at the numbers that I have for their self-mining as well. And then energized hash rate is 29.9. So that's good. That's an increase, obviously, from the 27.8 that they had here at in March as well. Operational average hash rate was 21.1. Installed hash rate 29.9. And then going down here, we can see where all of their exahash is at located. Okay. The all other various, I'm guessing that's their joint ventures part of the business here. And then total, as of April 30th, 2024, the company holds a total of 17,631 unrestricted BTC. Marathon opted to sell 600 Bitcoin in April. The company still intends to sell a portion of its Bitcoin holdings in future periods to support monthly operations, manage its treasury, and for general corporate purposes, which I think is a good thing. I mean, they got a huge hodl right now, right? They might as well sell some of it to fund, obviously, the operations, things like that, instead of diluting shareholders on it because, nobody really likes that dilution. Especially with them having such a huge hodl. So I think that's a good thing that they're doing there. Okay, going down here, I don't think there's anything else. They do have their earnings conference call scheduled for May 9th, right at 5 p.m. Eastern time. So that will be happening next week. We'll definitely cover it to see how they did. But I'm guessing they're going to have a really good quarter because they did obviously have a nice hodl. That Bitcoin price going from 40-some thousand into the 70,000 by the end of the first quarter, or close to that, is going to be a huge impact on them, obviously on their bottom line and their EPS as well. So it should be a really good quarter for them. It would have been even better if they were operating at 100%, but we'll take what we can get, right? So that's it. Let's take a look at the numbers that I have here for them. We'll make it pretty quick and sweet. The numbers that I have here for the stock price was as of yesterday, I believe. Let's see, Marathon price, where was it at? Marathon today was, excuse me, at 1752. Yeah, so it's as of yesterday. On the stock price here, market cap at that point was 4.5 billion roughly. And the performance over the last 12 weeks has been okay. It hasn't been great. We've seen other miners do better, but they're up 2.4% from 12 weeks ago. They're down 18% from 8 weeks ago. 4 weeks ago, they're up 0.6%, sorry. And then last week, they were up 17.76%. Excuse me. My throat's getting dry. Current hash rate, that is, let me see, what is this based on? I'm going to make sure I have the right numbers here. 24.7. It should be, why am I getting 20s? Okay, so that should be 27.5. So I need to fix that. I will fix that number there. Okay, and future hash rate, 50 exahash is what they're trying to get to. Hash rate left, right about half left to install. Their HODL is 17,631. That's valued at about 1.16 billion right now. That is 25% of their market cap as it is currently. Their Bitcoin mining, this is for self-mining only. I figured out that they were at 737 Bitcoins per the month here. And the reason I do this is the JVs, because they don't own more than 50% of those JVs, they don't get counted as revenue. And that's kind of what I'm tracking here is the revenue side of things. Okay, so that's the reason for that. Revenue here, this is, I believe, for self-mining only, which I calculated here, and they were at 48.57 million here in the month of April. Their BTC HODL, you can see here that they started basically last year at 11.5 thousand BTC. They're up at 17.6 thousand right now. Great growth for them in the HODL side of things. We can see that they've been pretty regular at selling their Bitcoin here. There was one off month here in February, which they had 700 Bitcoin, I think, that were restricted for something. And then that came off restriction. That's why I kind of came back up on this one. So they kind of messed up my numbers here a little bit. But like they said, they sold 600 BTC here in April. That's what I got for them based on those numbers. And you can see their hash rate growth has been increasing nicely as well. They were at 14 exahash at the beginning, in the beginning of April of last year. Now they're at 27.5 for their self-mining only, right? On that side of things, BTC per exahash still pretty low here, 26.72. Not the best as far as operations are concerned, but definitely has a huge hash rate here. And then Bitcoin sold value, how much they've been selling here each month. Going down here, we can see institutions and analyst ratings here. Institutions did increase to 416. Shares did also increase here to 110,570,000, right? About 500,000 increase in shares. Percentage increase to 41.61. We still have the same two strong buy ratings, 2 buy ratings, 5 hold ratings, 1 underperform rating. The price targets stayed the same for high, $35. Average went up to went down to 25.81, and the low is stayed at 19. Going down here to their operations for the month of April based on their miners here, I did install some 14,820 miners to get them up to the 27, and combined was 29.9. That includes their JV and their self-mining as well. Okay, so that's the way I was able to figure that out. And they were mining for approximately 19.8 days. I added about, 7.4 million here. No, 5.18 million here in transaction fees for them for the month. And that's kind of where we are at with them right now on all of this stuff here, right? We still have obviously a lot more miners to get installed here. We don't have a lot of details on those miners, unfortunately, because Fred is keeping that pretty close to his chest. So it would be nice to know what those are actually as far as hash rate and things like that. But this is the best guess estimate that I could come up with right now. And I'm guessing those are going to be the Aurodine miners, but I could be wrong on this. They could be buying from somebody else, but we just don't know. Okay. So if we had more information on it, I think we'd have better data on it. But it's kind of what we have right now to deal with. All right. Going up here, they are currently at 1750 something, right? I have them between $18.23 to $27.35 to being kind of fairly valued. They're undervalued right now, in my opinion, based on this. And this includes, obviously, the current quarter that we're in, which is an estimate. We're also including the Q1 results, which are still unknown for us. So those are still an estimate for us, along with the prior 2 quarters to that. And that's kind of what we're getting at here as far as stock price for them right now. So I do think that they are slightly undervalued here. And especially if they can fix their operations, all that other things going on, they could definitely be valued a heck of a lot more going forward. All right, so that is it for that. And yeah, let's get into the Q&A side of things. We'll call it a day here. But as always, I got to give my little sales pitch here as always. I want to thank, obviously, the Patreon members. It's because of you guys and the YouTube members and everybody else here that helps support and fund this channel, obviously. So thank you so much for that. If you want to have access to all the spreadsheets, that is, the link is in the description below. That's $8 a month. If you pay for the full year, you get 10% discount, and then there might be some spots open at the $5 and $4 range as well. Okay. Plus, you get access to the private Discord server for us, which we have a great community there. A lot of great people talking about options and trading and all that stuff here, which is really nice to see that everybody's sharing their knowledge on that side of things. Okay. So that's it for my sales pitch there. That's the only thing that I sell to you guys is access to my spreadsheets. Okay, so that is it for that. Let's get into the Q&A side of things here, see if you guys have any questions, and we'll get through this as we always do. Okay, so hopefully you guys are having a great Friday. I did. I had a great Friday with my parents today a little bit. They celebrated their 53 years of marriage. So I was happy to see that. Obviously, it's quite a feat, right, to be married to the same person for 53 years. That's quite an accomplishment. I'm very proud of my parents for being able to do that. So that's why the stream is obviously a little bit late tonight. Well, quite a bit late tonight. Okay. But let's get into some questions here. So let's see what we have here. Let's see here. Okay. First question here from Jen Pal. Question, what do you think Cleanspark... why do you think Cleanspark keep opening strong and then fading away until market close? I think it's the ATM. I think if they're seeing a good day where the price is going up, right, where there's a lot of buyers, they're probably pulling on the ATM, and that's kind of what I'm thinking right now. I could be wrong on that, but I've seen this before, and I think that might be the reason for it. Let's see here. What is the process like being picked to join the S&P 600? I think there's, I'd have to look into it, but if it's the same process as the S&P 500 for the large market caps, I think you have to have a few quarters of being a certain market cap, certain amount of revenue, I think, at that point. I'll have to take a look into it. But you can probably find that out if you just search it or Google it. Let's see. Sebastian, you see Bitfarms at 10x from here. Do you mean that in an optimistic sense or realistic, factoring Bitcoin hits 150,000 and they hit their growth targets? Break this down, how you see this. Yeah, so I mean, I think if Bitcoin goes only up 2x from here, right? So it'd be roughly around 150,000 roughly at that point. I mean, it's at 63, so it'd be 120,000. At that point, I think Bitfarms can probably go like maybe 5, 6x potentially, right? As we've seen before, Bitcoin going up nicely usually has an effect of like a 3x on top of the 2x that the Bitcoin does. So if you're looking at 2x, that'd be like a 6x. I'm saying like 5x potentially. And if they can obviously grow and expand their operations, that's kind of what I'm looking at for them at that point, is to get to somewhere around between 5 and 6x. I think is definitely doable. If Bitcoin goes up to like a 200,000, at that point, looking like a 3x, they're looking at more close to like a 9x on the miners potentially. So that's where I'm kind of seeing the 10x here. If Bitcoin goes to like 200,000 plus. And that's why I say they could do even better if Bitcoin goes up to like 250,000. And some are saying they could go to 300,000, which I don't know is going to do that. Right? We could definitely do a lot better on the miners here, but they definitely need to grow, expand their operations, install the miners. They got to get to 12 exahash by the end of the first half here, and then obviously get to 21 exahash by the end of the year as well. So they got a lot of work cut out for them as well. Okay. Let's see here. Which miner do you think will join the S&P 600 next? I would think that would probably be between Cleanspark and Riot potentially, right? That might be a possibility there, depending, right? I'll have to look into what the S&P 600 qualifications are for that to really know. But based on seeing that Marathon's in there now, I'm thinking maybe Cleanspark and Riot could possibly get into that in the next couple quarters, I'm guessing. Okay. And I'm not seeing any other questions. Oh, there we go. We got one more question here. Popping in. Let's see here. Why is that popping up? There it is. Since IREN is ahead of schedule with growing exahash, what do you think they will hit end of the year? Well, their target is still 20 exahash, right? That's basically bought and paid for right now. I think it's enough I think miners are paid for and the infrastructure is paid for as well to build out to that point. If they can obviously grow beyond that, that would be great. So I'm guessing maybe they can grow to another 2-4 exahash beyond that if that is possible for them. That's kind of the way I'm seeing things. We'll have to see. Let's see. Do you see Mara shares sliding after the earnings report despite them most likely beating it? There will theoretically be higher EPS and will have strong guidance with trying to reach the 50 exahash a year. I don't know if there's going to be a slide. I think it's going to depend on Bitcoin. Bitcoin is continuing to go up potentially here slowly. I'm hoping it goes slowly. I don't want it to go parabolic in a couple of days. I want it to go slowly over time. If it does that, I think at that point, I don't think there's going to be a slide in the shares with the earnings. I think the earnings are going to be pretty good, right? They have a huge hodl stack. Like I said in the video here just a minute ago, Bitcoin was at 40-some thousand at the beginning of the quarter. It ended up closer to like 70,000 or passing 70,000 even. So that's a huge increase in that value, and their hodl obviously increased from those couple months as well. That's going to have a huge impact on the EPS side of things. So that should help out there. They also obviously had pretty good revenue as well. Not as great as we would have thought with being obviously down on hash rate and operational side of things. But I think the Bitcoin hodl will cover up a lot of that inefficiencies there potentially. But we'll have to see, right? Riot came out with their earnings, kind of pumped a little bit here this week, but Bitcoin was coming down in price. That didn't really help things. So if Bitcoin is kind of going up, I think the stock may really do really well in next week potentially. Let's see here. Next question. Which could be stronger in the long term, Cleanspark or Mara? Why I own both? Thanks. I mean, both of them have great potential here, right? Marathon obviously is the leader right now with hash rate and everything else. Excuse me. They just need to figure out or fix their issues with the two facilities that they have. If they can do that, their uptime is going to be much better, which is obviously what we all want, right? Investors, you guys, everybody else here wants them to do well. Cleanspark obviously is kind of nipping at their heels a little bit as well, right? They're getting to 32 exahash this year. They do have purchase orders in place for machines to get to 50 exahash this year. So could Cleanspark come in and also at 50 exahash this year, which would be kind of like, Rocky Balboa versus, what's the other one? The Russian guy. I can't remember that, right? So it's kind of maybe a bad example, but you know what I mean? It's, Marathon is like obviously the top dog here. Cleanspark has been the kind of nitty gritty up and comer that's just doing everything right, trying to grow as much as they can, doing everything that they can to grow that as well. So it'll be fun to see. I'm obviously rooting for Cleanspark, and I'm also rooting for Marathon, obviously get to 50 exahash. But it's going to be fun to see who can actually get there first. But the other thing is you have to think about is, okay, getting the 50 exahash is great, but what is your uptime? What is your other things on that as well? So all things need to be considered here. Let's see here. Can you give your thoughts on Hive? So I've owned Hive in the past. I've owned them since 2017, 2018. Through the bull run here in 2021, everybody thought Bitcoin was going to go to 100,000, so I was holding on to it. Then Bitcoin only got to 69,000. It came down. And then I've seen them just basically, and they've stated this publicly themselves, that they want to maintain 1% of the Bitcoin network hash rate. So if Bitcoin's network hash is at 600 exahash right now, they want to be at 6 exahash. If Bitcoin network hash grows to 800 exahash, they want to be at 8 exahash basically. Right? So they don't have the mindset of trying to be number one. They are very efficient. They're also trying to get into the AI side of things. That might be really good there. We don't know, right? We're waiting on some results on that. So, I mean, what can I say about Hive? I mean, they're efficient. They have really good costs. But I think in this space, it's a growth that's really being rewarded by the investors more so than anything else. You can be as efficient as you want, but if you don't have the growth, you're not going to get the love from the investors potentially. So that's why I actually sold them back in November of last year. Took my profits out of that, put them into Cleanspark, Bitfarms, and IREN at that point. Okay, because I saw the growth happening there. Let's see here. If you could relocate, would you still hold Bitfarms in a higher allocation than IREN? Yeah, I mean, but hindsight is 2020 always. But I think I would still hold more Bitfarms. And the reason is because you have to look back historically as far as what happened with Bitfarms, what happened with IREN as well, right? There's two different stories to those guys, and there's two different approaches that were being taken. So based on what I saw at those times frames, right, going back 2.5 years or something like that, I saw Bitfarms as a better story potentially going forward than IREN. IREN was reporting every biannually, right, so every 6 months. Bitfarms was reporting every quarterly, so we're getting that updates all the time. Bitfarms was also hodling. They did sell a lot of their hodl. They made some mistakes, but so did IREN, right? IREN had the special purpose vehicles. They had to give back like 3.5 exahash of their hash rate back to the creditor or to the loan company. I think it was NYDIG at that point. So they all made mistakes. I don't know if that was a really mistake on IREN for the special purpose vehicles. It was structured in a really great way, which it didn't affect the company. So I applaud them for doing that. But I think they kind of ruined it for everybody else going forward, where companies will not do any kind of special purpose vehicles with loans for going forward. So, and then also IREN doesn't hodl, Bitfarms does hodl. So there's things you have to take into consideration at that point. Operationally wise, they're both really efficient as far as operations are concerned. So I actually wanted to get into IREN back in 2022, but because the SPVs, right, were being returned to the lender, I wanted to hold off and see how they actually did going forward, because that was a huge amount of their hash rate that was coming offline. It was like 3/4 of the hash rate, I think, that came offline at that point, right? They were almost at like 4, I'm trying to think if you're in memory, 4 to 5 exahash or something like that. And then you got 3.5 going offline. They were down to like 1.5 or something like that, right? So it's a huge drop in that at that point. But that's kind of, I think I still would have done with Bitfarms, knowing what I know now. Let's see here. How much do you think Iris will mine for April production? Probably a little bit less than they mined obviously in March. We don't really know. It all depends on the blocks, how many BTC rewards they got and things like that. But it's not going to be too far off. It shouldn't be too far off. Let's see. And do you see IREN doing a 10x? Depending where Bitcoin goes, right? If Bitcoin goes up to 200,000, 250,000, yeah, I see IREN doing 10x. The other thing is we'd like to see, obviously, them some numbers on the AI side of things, right? They've only had so far pretty short contracts with AI customers, like 3 months. Now I think they're extending it for another 3 months. It'd be nice to see if they can get a contract with somebody for a year, 2 years, 3 years, something like that. That might be also pretty good there. And as long as it's profitable for them, I think that would be kind of good there as well. Let's see. Did you see the post Dan Robert made of the design for their new offices in Childress moving to USHQ? Yeah, I think that would be kind of cool there, right? The design kind of reminded me of a country club a little bit. They had the little golf putting green up front. I don't know if it's a building to house people. So what difference does it make what it really looks like? But the cool thing would be obviously for them to move to the United States. And I think with their operations being more based here, can't say the word, based in the United States, I think would have to be based in the United States because over 50% of the revenue is going to be coming in from Childress and the other facility as well. So I think that's a smart move there. Let's see. Question: Mara being included in the S&P will have a positive outcome for other miners like Cleanspark as well. Yeah, I think so. Potentially. Let's see here. Do you think these miners can get 10x? Don't you think the sector has matured and is also too high in market shares now? You're talking about the regular shares outstanding, but I think, remember, you got to look at also growth. So if you look at where they were last cycle, they were at like 1 exahash, 2 exahash, something like that, 3 exahash at most, right? They're now at going to 30 exahash, 50 exahash. That's a 10x from where they were as far as that point. Bitcoin has also gone up in price, meaning that the revenue from that being generated has also increased tremendously here. So you have to take that into account as well. Yes, dilution has been a big I wouldn't say problem. Dilution has had a big impact on it, but as long as the dilution is accretive to investors, which for the most part I'm seeing that here. The only time I like dilution is if you're not growing and you're just hodling. You're trying to hodl as much as you can. I don't like that type of dilution because I don't think it's accretive to investors at that point, right? So if you're at 4 exahash and you're stuck there for 4 exahash for a year, not doing anything to grow, but you're also diluting shareholders to hodl what you're producing at that point, you're also diluting them to fund your operations, your salaries, all that stuff in order to hodl as well. I don't like that. Let's see. What is the likelihood of Mara acquiring Stronghold with their current liquidity position? Very, 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 very small. I'd say almost like zero. I don't think there's no reason for Marathon to acquire Stronghold. Remember, Marathon did have, was it Mount something? I can't remember the name right now. They had a facility that they had their own, basically, I think it was coal at that point also. Coal power, natural gas power plant. I can't remember which one it was. But they had that back in 2022, I believe it was. They actually shut that down. They sold it, whatever, because it was just a nightmare for them. So I don't see that happening anywhere. Kevin, let's see here. Thank you so much for the super chat. I met with Satoshi Bitcoin. He really likes your channel. Anyway, you all have a nice weekend. Thank you, Kevin. You too. And I saw that you posted that on Talking Investing as well with Tom and George on there. I was on there. They had a great conversation, obviously, what's going on with Bitcoin and stuff like that. So thank you so much. Victor C just became a member. Thank you so much. Let's see. What else do we have here? Do you think the expected power cuts coming up in Texas will affect miners like Cleanspark will struggle, especially since they have their new rigs are there? So actually, Cleanspark does not have any facilities in Texas. We got IREN that has facilities there. We have Riot, Marathon, Argo, Cypher is in there as well. I'm trying to think who else is in there. I think that's about. There might be a couple other in there, but I just can't think of it right now. But yeah, Cleanspark's not part of them. Cleanspark's located in Georgia. They have a hosting facility that they host through in, I think, New York, a little bit, not much. And then they have facilities in Mississippi as well that they purchased, obviously, here recently. Let's see here. Between IREN and Bitfarms, which is more likely to 10x from here if BTC hits 150? If Bitcoin hits 150, they're going only 5, 6x, maybe 8x, or something like that. You need Bitcoin to be at least like 200,000 for those guys to 10x, I think. But that all really depends on investors too, right? If investors find value in them and they're doing really well, they could potentially get up higher faster. But on average, I'm guessing conservatively 5 to 6 to maybe 8x at that point, 150,000. 200,000, you're looking more towards the 10x. Who's going to get there first? Oh gosh, I don't know. I hope they both do it at the same time. That'd be kind of nice. But it just all depends on which one is able to obviously execute on their growth to IREN 20 exahash, Bitfarms 21 exahash going forward as well, right? Michelle Lee, thank you so much for the comment. Let's see here. Do you see Mara above 25 in May? I think it's doable. It all depends on Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin continues to go up here when we get to, maybe 70,000, 85,000, something like that. I think that's definitely going to push the miners up much higher in price, right? But that's kind of what we need to see here. Let's see here. When do you see the pump beginning? I mean, we might be seeing the start of a little one right now, right? Maybe Bitcoin has bottomed out at 56,500 here in the last on Wednesday. We'll have to see. It's too early to tell, but with it bottoming out at 56,500, I think it was down like 23% at that point, right? Which is kind of what we've seen here in the last year as far as how much Bitcoin has been kind of having pullbacks and then continuing to go up much higher. So I'm hoping that's kind of the way it's going to play out. Historically, we've seen, obviously, in previous cycles where Bitcoin's come down like 30, 35% and then continue to run up. But we're not seeing that, at least in the last 12 to 18 months. We haven't seen that here. So I'm hoping that's kind of the way it's going to work out, but we'll see. Do you see any more short-term dips below 60? Is this likely? I mean, anything is likely with Bitcoin, right? We could get a candle wick down to 60,000 to 58,000, whatever it is, and goes back up. So anything is possible with Bitcoin on this side of things. And when I see those types of opportunities, I look at them as opportunities. I've been invested in the miners here for over 2.5 years probably now, or getting close to that. I've looked at those buying opportunities as the dips, as buying opportunities to buy more into the miners that I really have high conviction in going forward, because you're not going to be able to time the bottom perfectly. You're not going to be able to time the top. I can't do it. Maybe there's others out there that can do it, and there are others out there on Twitter and things like that that have a pretty good track record of doing that. I'm not that kind of guy, right? I don't have the time to sit in front of the charts all day and see what's going on here. I just like to buy into the miners that I think are going to do well going forward, and if I get a sale on things, I will continue to buy in. Okay. Let's see it. Kevin, again, thank you so much for the super chat. I'll leave my jokes outside. I think we are about to win big in the next 2 to 6 weeks. Been in this for 9 years. Yeah, I mean, so you've been in this even longer than I have. I've been in this since 2017, so I'm going on 7 years on this. So you've been even before me. Yeah. Let's see. How much of an impact will general market trend, S&P 500, etc., have on the BTC miner movement? Do you expect a lot of correlation? Thanks. I mean, Bitcoin miners are more correlated to Bitcoin itself than anything else, right? If we get Papa Powell potentially lowering interest rates on us later on this year, that's going to have a huge impact because it's going to be basically risk on at that point, right, for investors. So we'll see on that one. I'm looking for another question. Could you tell me your portfolio mining stocks? Bitfarms, IREN, Cleanspark, WGMI. Yeah, that's basically it. Cleanspark is my number one position right now. Bitfarms is my second one. IREN is my third one. WGMI, I have that along with BitIQ. I think I probably need to add that into my disclosure. But I own that one also in my 401k profit sharing plan. I bought those back in 2023 in January. And I've been basically holding on to them and just continuing to buy into them since then, at least for the 401k profit sharing plan. The other miners, I've been buying into them since January of 2022. Let's see. Bitfarms year-end conservative price, please. Well, that depends where Bitcoin's going to be. So a lot of people are saying that Bitcoin might be at like 100,000 by the end of the year. Maybe a little bit more than that, 120. So that'd be basically a 2x in Bitcoin. At that point, you're looking at maybe Bitfarms being at, 4 to 6x high from where it's at right now, conservatively thinking. Okay, let's see. IREN did not pivot to HPC, was planned from the start. It might have been planned from the start, right? But they obviously have been more concentrated on Bitcoin in the beginning. Right, they're now starting to get more into the AI side of things as well. Let's see. Are you attending tomorrow's space call on Twitter? Also, do you know who is attending from each mining company? I am. I'm obviously co-hosting it with the BTC mining guy. Right, that's at 12 o'clock tomorrow Central Standard Time. So right at noon. And I think we have Patrick from TerraWolf coming on. We may have. There were a couple other ones that we were supposed to have on there. I think we're supposed to have guys on from IREN, somebody from IREN at least, potentially somebody from Hive. Who else will we have on there? I think we're going to get somebody from Cleanspark maybe as well. And then I don't know if you guys saw the Twitter post from the BTC mining guy. I call him guy. We're trying to get Michael Saylor on. It'd be kind of cool to get him on and get his take on things, because obviously he has a huge stack of BTC, and it would be nice to see if he's got any thoughts about Bitcoin miners, as far as would that be a possibility for him to get into that, or something that he would want to buy into, because it can mine Bitcoin at a much lower cost for them. So that'd be kind of cool to get. We'll see if we can get Michael Saylor on one of these days. Maybe next year we could do it. Obviously, if the community grows far enough and we have enough traction and everything else, but that'd be cool. Or if we have some contacts that have pretty good relationships with Michael Saylor, maybe they can kind of nudge him in to get into the space as well. I think that'd be just fantastic, but we'll see. Kevin, you're right. I should call it X, but force the habit, I call it Twitter. And maybe I should try and make a better effort to call it X. But yeah, I think he's doing really good things here on X. Let's see it. Will these stocks be able to do dividends? Not if we continue to have these type of bull and bear markets in Bitcoin, right? What we would need to have is more of a stable, basically Bitcoin price, or at least stable appreciation Bitcoin going forward, in order for these guys to be able to do dividends. It's also very competitive, right? Now where hash rate continues to grow, so that's always tough. So I don't know if we'll ever have dividends on these guys. There's been obviously promises from other companies that they might do dividends and things like that in the future, but I'm not thinking it's going to happen, because it's just, one, competitive, right? Hash rate continues to grow, and the big swings in Bitcoin, it just makes it tough for the miners to forecast long term as far as what their potential revenue is going to be, profits, things like that. Let's see. Okay, I think I got one more here maybe coming up here. Let me see if it pops up. I gotta take a sip of my water. There it is. Okay. Do you think any state funding for mining companies in the future? Do you think any state funding for mining companies in the future? Do you mean like government states, like IREN or something like that? What was it? Was there a tweet that what's her name? I can't remember this. I can't remember if she's a senator or a congresswoman. Where she's saying that the United States has to do something about IREN mining Bitcoin or something like that. Right? I don't know if that's going to happen or not. Let's see. Can you make a case that the availability of spot ETF steals the show of miners? No, because the spot Bitcoin ETFs basically follow Bitcoin. So wherever Bitcoin does, Bitcoin goes 2x. The ETFs should, in theory, go up 2x as well, right? So there's really not a leverage play on the ETFs, at least not right now. There are other instruments. I think there's BitX or something like that goes 2x of what Bitcoin does. So Bitcoin goes up 2x, it goes up basically up 4x. But it's the same happens when Bitcoin goes down 2x or goes down 50%. That thing goes up down 100% or something like that. You know what I'm talking about here. So I don't think there's really nothing to steal from it. The people that are going to get into the spot ETFs are going to be people that are more conservative. Well, I mean, a little bit more conservative than going into the miners. The miners are definitely a much larger leverage play on Bitcoin, because they are just so much more volatile than Bitcoin itself is. So I don't see that happening. Yeah. Sir, also conservative price for Hot 8 by the end of the year. Oh gosh, that's a tough one. I need more data on the combined company right now. We're going to get that when they report their Q1 results here as a combined company. The numbers that we got from their end of the year, or in December, right? Those were for 6 months of USBTC and like 1 month of Hut 8 to be included in there. The numbers were just way off on it, so I can't go by those numbers. We also need to see how they actually grow forward with their self-mining. So there's it's tough to say on that one specifically, because there's just so many variables that are unknown right now. on them. But you could look at it this way: if Bitcoin goes 2x here, they should do at least 3 to 6x on top of that potentially, right? But they're not being really rewarded for it right now because their future hash rate growth has not been great, or it's not been great and is unknown, unfortunately, right now. Okay. Let's see here. Do you think Mara has a chance one day to be included in the S&P 500? I think some of the miners do have a chance in that, Marathon being obviously included in that, but I think you need to have, 4 quarters or something like that of certain, I'd have to look into it again, but it was a while back that I looked at it. There's 4 quarters that you have to be above a certain market cap, and something else that was included in there as well. So it's possible, right? But I think it might be down the road, might be down the next cycle or something like that. Elizabeth Warren, yes, thank you very much, Andrea. Yeah, there was definitely Elizabeth Warren where I saw her tweet about IREN and mining Bitcoin. It's like, you're complaining about Bitcoin miners in the United States, but then again, you want to stop the miners in IREN. No, it doesn't really make any sense. Let's see. As you ended up back holding the last cycle, have you already planned your take profit DCA out points? Yeah, I think I learned a lesson obviously back then. Right, we got people people stating that Bitcoin is going to 250,000, 350,000 this cycle. I'm listening to those people here, but I'm also being cautious on it. So I think once Bitcoin, my original target here for Bitcoin was 180,000 this cycle. If Bitcoin starts getting above 120,000, that's when I'll start slowly, dollar cost averaging out. I'm not going to be waiting for that 350,000, 250,000, whatever it might be. If it gets there, great, but I'm going to be slowly dollar cost averaging out to see how things progress forward, because I did not want to be holding the bags again. So I've learned my lesson from that. The big thing was obviously not dollar cost averaging out as I dollar cost averaged in. So you got to do the same thing on the way in as the same thing as on the way out, basically. Okay, let's see here. So I think it was Elizabeth Warren, but I meant do you think local or state governments from states that the companies have facilities would get local funding or contract to help them? No, I don't see that happening. There's just too volatile of a space right now. I don't see that happening. You might have, you can see with Cleanspark a little bit here but they're not getting funding for it, right? They're getting local municipalities, local cities, towns, and being interested in bringing those types of miners in place, right? Because we've seen, at least Cleanspark has explained it this way, that the local communities benefit by lower electricity rates, lower property taxes as well because of the taxes they're paying on the electricity and things like that. So I think that might be a benefit to it, but I don't see any municipality or state or county or anybody else in that matter paying the miners I don't see that. They might do them TIFs, I think they're called, where you basically give them a tax break for a couple of years or something like that, maybe that, but nobody's gonna be actually paying them to do that. Kevin, thanks you so much again. Good night, everyone. Much respect to you. Thank you. Same to you. Have a great weekend. Hopefully you can join us tomorrow on the Twitter space as well. That's starting at 12 noon. I'm going to be able to pronounce this. Himanashi, thank you so much for the super chat. Greatly appreciate it. Peer character lying on the side, raising his arms while saying how it's going. Okay. What are you thinking? Okay, next question here. What are you thinking about Cleanspark earnings this coming week? Still profitable? Yeah, they should be profitable because Bitcoin obviously has gone up quite nicely. They have a nice hodl stack that has increased as well. Obviously, it's not going to be as nice of an improvement as Marathon's hodl or Riot's, right? Those guys have huge hodls there that obviously helped tremendously. But I do expect them to still be EPS positive. Let's see. Question further to DCing out, do you think you will keep a small percentage of each miner and remain in the market in case we don't see a major correction or some extended cycle? Yeah, that's a good question there. I'm thinking I may keep, we'll have to obviously see what happens here. Obviously, if we start falling down 50% from a peak or something like that, that's a pretty clear indication that we're probably going back into the bear market. So I will probably keep a very small percentage, maybe 5 to 10% of what I have just to see where things go. But obviously, when you see Bitcoin going down 10%, 20% from a possible peak, and then 30%, that's maybe a pretty good sign that we might be getting towards the bottom of it all, or going from the top, going to the bottom more so. So I'll have to keep an eye on it, right? Nobody's going to time the market perfectly. I'm not going to be able to sell everything out at the peak here because we just don't know. And like you said, what if the cycle is different? What if the cycle continues going on forward where we get maybe 20, 30% reduction in Bitcoin price, but then it continues going up much higher, right? With the spot Bitcoin ETFs, everything else, it's just a different cycle this time around. So we'll have to keep an eye on it. But listen, if I'm up, I'm still up right now on Cleanspark, like 350% or something like that. If I'm up, 10x, 12x, whatever it might be on Cleanspark, Bitfarms, and whatnot, I'll be happy with those profits that I have. I'll definitely continue to track this, the markets here with the miners and see how they're doing, and look for maybe potential buy-ins again, right? But we'll obviously have to buy in on the dips, and there'll be a different trading strategy as well. It won't be as easy as, buy in the bear markets and sell in the bull runs. Well, if that happens again, that'd be great, but we don't know if that's going to happen again. Okay. Let's see. Buy on rumor, sell on the news. It's still applicable to for the current crypto mining bull run for their upcoming releases of their financial reports? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't really care what those reports are going to be at. I do care in a sense, right? But I'm looking more for on their growth, their operations, their uptime, those things. What is that going to be in the future? Their operations could obviously have swings because they could put in their bonuses and other things that are beyond our control that we just can't control, but it could obviously have a negative impact on the bottom line as well. So I look at them and I like to see that obviously that they're EPS positive, but the big thing for me is growth going forward because that's really what's going to matter, in my opinion. Let's see. Do you think the next bear market would see less downfall than others because retail institutions have the knowledge of how scarce BTC is? I mean, they know that BTC is scarce, but the other part of it is, right, the institutions, they will reallocate their basically funds every quarter, every couple quarters, every year, right? If Bitcoin's up 100%, they're going to probably relocate a large portion of that also into something that can be a little bit safer, right? And you might see that also with mom and pop shops. You'll see that with hedge funds. You'll see that with other places as well, where they're going to reallocate those funds basically to something else that's maybe a little bit safer. But if you're up 100%, 150% or something like that, those guys are more likely to do it than like the degens that we are here, where we're looking for to get at least 5x, 10x, whatever it might be. We're willing to hold on to it, to risk it a little bit more than those guys are, I think. It'll be interesting. It's going to be a different cycle this time, all over from start to end, basically. We just don't know how things are going to play out with the institutions and everybody else getting into it. Now, obviously, if you have like pension funds getting into it, other funds as well, the more adoption you have, I think the less volatile it's going to be, right? Potentially, maybe, because you're going to have those buying in, and then you may have some guys in the back selling out a little bit. They got a little bit earlier, but you got more guys buying in. So it'll be interesting. Let's see. Grayscale had their first inflow today ever since ETF started trading in January. Thoughts? So you're talking about Grayscale Bitcoin Trust? That's interesting that they are getting inflows again. I mean, they've been having outflows for the past, 3 months or so. So that's interesting. I don't know enough about that to really comment. Let's see here. Question: with the demand for HPC AI services set to 100x over the next decade, do you think it's just a matter of time of when, not if, miners pivot to offering these services in the future? It all depends on the profitability of those things, right? Also, the other thing you have to keep in mind is those servers are a heck of a lot more expensive than the Bitcoin miners' ASICs are, right? So we just saw, was it BitDigital spend 20, 30 million or something like that? Was it 518 servers or something like that? And those will eventually be, you could say, almost obsolete in like 2 years. And the ROI on those is usually like 2 years or something like that. So, right. So it's kind of a tough spot to be in, and we really don't know the economics that well right now. We would have to obviously get more data on this. How profitable are they? How quickly can they actually pay those things off? And then obviously depending on also Bitcoin economics, right? We've heard stories from the BitDigital CEO, not stories, but I asked him the question, what is the break-even point for the AI side of things, and where Bitcoin price has to be in order for those profits to be the same? And he said for Bitcoin to be 100,000, right? So 100,000 plus, Bitcoin is more profitable than the AI side of the business is. It'll be interesting. I keep saying it'll be interesting because it's going to be interesting. We just don't know. There's just so many variables at play here that nobody knows the future, what's going to happen, until we actually see some data on everything, get some data points, and then we can kind of analyze how things are going forward on that one. Let's see. What's your assumption of BTC price when you give a Cleanspark price target of 70? Thank you. For that, it would have to be probably closer to 200,000 or above. That's kind of what I'm thinking at that, because that's basically for Cleanspark there, what, $15, $16 right now, something like that. If you do a 5x on it, that would possibly get them to right around there. So I think that might be right around maybe 150,000 to 200,000 price target, somewhere around there. As long as they can continue to build out and get close to the 32 exahashes that they want to get to by the end of the year, right? If they can do that, I think that could possibly happen. Let's see. And I think that is it. And we've been going on here for about an hour. So I think we're calling it a day, guys. Thank you so much for coming in to watch this. Obviously, greatly appreciate you guys. We'll see tomorrow. Like I said, tomorrow. Let me see. Am I muted right now? I hope I'm not muted. Movie. Okay. Hopefully I'm not muted. But basically, tomorrow's obviously Saturday. Tomorrow I'm going to be joining the BTC mining guy on X Spaces at 12 o'clock Central Standard Time. And like I said, we do have a couple miners, executives coming on there as well. And we're trying to get Michael Saylor on there as well, I think, which would be kind of great. But overall, that's kind of the plan right now. We'll do a live stream either tomorrow if I have the time. I got my boys soccer games in the morning. Then I'll be doing the spaces with the BTC mining guy. And then I think I have some friends and family coming over later on in the day. So I may not have time tomorrow. So we'll do it on Sunday, if anything, to look at the Bitcoin miners, see how they did this past week along with Bitcoin and whatever else we can obviously come up with as far as metrics and things like that. So that's it. So I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy it. Go outside, play outside, get some fresh air. The miners and Bitcoin is stressful enough. We need to touch grass sometimes, I think, and just kind of enjoy life a little bit. All right. So that's it. Thank you again. Have a wonderful weekend. I'll see you guys in the next one.